I've now started my CRM application. As this is the first time I've used CRM, I need to specify my data source that I wish to connect to. I can maintain a list of data sources as well as just typing in my data source in the connect to. I then need to specify a user ID and user password to connect through to this Firebird database. As this is the first time I have run the application, I only have one user created on the system, and that is my sysdba user with the password in lowercase of master key, the same as on our connection settings. So that is master key. I can then press login, and it tells me the system administrator doesn't exist within this data set, which is correct, and I wish to add it. So I say yes, and then my login will continue. My CRM is now loaded, and I can now see all my Pastel customers. These are stored directly on Pastel. I can see my prospects, my suppliers, my inventory items, everything is available to me. Just on a quick setup, various setups which we won't go through at the moment, but we'll look at the user details. User details gives me the user ID in Pastel, so this is user 0. I can then specify the CRM ID, which will be the Firebird ID that I wish to create. So I'm going to enter the details in here, enter an email address and save that user. I'm going to then specify another user, and I'm going to save that user. I can create these users in Firebird if they don't already exist, and I can have them grant access to this tables, which means that they can actually open up this database. So okay, in this case Sarah doesn't exist in the Firebird. It says it's created the user in Firebird and it's assigned the default password of let me in, okay, which is the default password. You can then go through and set and change those parameters. When we set up our initial database, we set up some global parameters for connection through to Pastel data for ODBC DSN. Now the ODBC DSN, there is a documentation on our support website, which if you're unsure about setting up pervasive ODBCs and database and data source names, we suggest you read that document. But here I can actually specify user settings. So I can tell it, okay, for this particular user, when we set up Pastel, for some unknown reason, we set the drive as T, and that is the path to our data. We're still using shared data, and because this user has limited access to ODBCs, as the administrator, I have created a ODBC for her. Now, because this is called PDI CRM will not attempt to change the DSN for this user. It will just use whatever the settings are in that ODBC. So if your ODBC points to a different data source, you will get strange results on your reports. So just make sure that you set up the ODBC to match the actual data that she's looking at. And there you go. Because I didn't specify a DSN, this is the type of error message you'll get, failed to connect. So if you see those sort of messages, that's when you need to start looking at, does this person have security to actually enable them to run ODBC changes from inside their user account. So that's the user settings. And again, system parameters is the global one where the system will use this DSN and this database for all users who do not have a user specific entry. As well as this video and screen tutorial, there is also documentation on the setup of CRM and installation and creation of new databases, and we suggest you read that as well as reviewing the contents of this video. Thank you.